Good evening, everyone. This is Paris. I'm here with the 411 for the Gospel of Jesus Christ. All right, let me see. Today, we will discuss things about... Let me see. We're going to discuss about God will not leave us. God will not fail us. And God has it all in his hands. I'm going to be reading from my notes because I'm a note taker. And I'm also going to be reading from the Bible. So let's get our Bibles. All right. Oh, today is going to be a lovely day. All right. Sometimes we have to constantly and consistently remind ourselves in order to maintain the disposition of authority and the disposition of peace. We have to remember that every day God is with us. God is for us. He's on our side. God is mercy because there is no place for shame, and God will guide us. We may not have everything figured out, but because God is with us, because he is on our side, God will guide us. He will never fail us. We have to practice saying, God is with me. God will guide me. God is merciful. God will not fail me. Again, God is with me. God will guide me. God is merciful. And God will not fail me. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 7. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 7. These are chronicles. And it reads, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Again, that's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 7. There is nothing in the world that's greater and more powerful than peace. The chastisement that will bring us peace was placed on him. So everything he went through was to get us to a place of peace. A lot of us pursue peace every single day in many forms, in a variety of ways, like love, success, purpose, recognition, or by being understood, maybe even religion. Spirituality, all of these things we look for every single day. Even though we may be searching in these variety of various forms, we're looking for peace. We're looking for wholeness. We're looking for shalom. We're looking for rest. We're looking for completeness. The pursuit of peace is even greater than the pursuit of happiness. Peace is deeper because happiness is a feeling. But peace is being, if you have peace, then you can be happy. The more you learn about God and his ways, the more peace you can have in your life. Let's go to Isaiah 26, verse 3. That's Isaiah 26, verse 3. And it reads, you would keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. What it means to have your mind stayed on God is that your mind is fixed on God. It's when you stare at God. God is amazing, and we will miss God if we don't stare at God. If you stare at God long enough, you're going to get a new aspect of who He is. Oftentimes, when your peace is disrupted, your focus on God somehow has been broken down. When we stare at our difficulty more than we stare at God, or meditating on our troubles or our perceived needs, it can cause our peace to be disrupted, because peace oftentimes have to do with what we are focusing on. Somehow, when it may seem like we are unbalanced, let's not look at scriptures for religious rules. Let's look at them to refresh our stare and our gaze when we have to try and find God's face again, because it is impossible for you to stare at God and be in His face and not have peace. God does not want us in His face and we mad and not having peace. He wants us to be at peace. We can bring our flaws and our madness and sadness and our problems to Him, but He wants us to be at peace. He wants us to be at peace. He will keep us in perfect peace. When our minds are stayed upon Him, we have to grow in peace. They are attempting to disrupt our peace. There are things that are attempting to disrupt our peace. See, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, you find God doing what God does. In the beginning is not God's beginning. In the beginning is something that God was doing. We're not finding the beginning of God because God is infinite. What we are doing in this scripture is finding the beginning of something that God is getting ready to create. Our lives are made up of cycles that have beginnings. Sometimes we want to arrive and never go through stuff again. Life is a series of cycles because our lives are revolving. Even the earth is moving, and so is our lives. And we are evolving as we revolve. So our life is moving, and as our life moves, we move. And so there will always be a beginning happening somewhere in our lives, and that is where the work of God will be happening. There will always be a beginning happening somewhere in our life if you are growing. Beginning can be tricky because we may think our life is ending, but we have to embrace the fact that it is not ending. It could be a way that God is beginning something. And we have to understand it because we could end up frustrated for no reason. We could end up frustrated for no reason. And we have to understand it because we could end up miserable for no reason. And God sees lack. Where we see we are fine or don't want to change. We want to be complacent. We don't want to grow or do anything. We want to be stagnant. God begins to stir things up. Because oftentimes in the place where we see contentment, God sees lack. And then all of a sudden, He begins a process in us. Even God things become good things that need to be torn down. In order to make way for new things, good things is something that is good, but may not necessarily be God. May not necessarily be God. A good thing may not necessarily be God, but a God thing is God. God is definitely doing something. So even when the thing that was once God becomes good, and that's when things get tricky, and when a God thing becomes a good thing, and you didn't recognize the shift, then in order to get to the God thing, oftentimes, we have to be torn down. We have to tear down the good thing, and it is frustrating. When God is creating it, it can almost always necessitate renovation. In other words, a temporary chaos. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, chaos is when things are out of order. See, that's when things begin to be tricky, because when God is getting ready to do something new and it goes through this innovation process and we don't know it and we get confused and feel like something's wrong. No, sometimes nothing is wrong. Sometimes everything is right. The difference between a mess and a miracle in the making is in sight. See, we get frustrated when we see things in disorder and everything looking crazy, because we had an insight about what is ultimately going to happen with our property in our lives. We have to understand, when God is creating something in our life, God is the God, the only God. When he is getting ready to create a new beginning in our life, to bring you to another dimension, to bring you to another place, he has to disrupt things, or he has to disrupt things to bring you to another place, to bring you in chaos or disorder in the situation, and it's controlled by chaos. Because when God gets finished with what he's building in your life, baby, that thing is serious. It's serious when God gets finished. You got to trust God in the process. You got to trust him. When chaos happens, there is reordering. It's chaos to us, but because God knows the beginning and the end, he knows exactly where things are supposed to fit. Let's look at Philippians 1:6. Philippians 1:6, you guys. Don't you wish the Bible could say Philippians 1:6? Poof. Let's go to Philippians 1:6, you all. Being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. God is going to complete what he starts. He is doing a new thing in you, and you can't see it. And it seems awkward or weird, but in between dimensions and in between levels, it is normal. To have seasons where you don't have it all figured out, it is normal. To where you have to learn how to walk all over again. It's normal for you to return and become a student all over again. Not only is it normal, it is necessary. Necessary. How else you're going to continue to go from level to level, and to glory, and faith to faith, on your way to purpose and destiny without becoming a student. So that means you're supposed to not know what's going on. That means you're supposed to be the one with all the questions. So you don't supposed to know what's going on all the time. And it's okay for you to have all the questions. There comes a season where we are the ones that have questions, that we can answer, that we can ask questions. The beautiful thing about starting over is that you never start over on the same level. Yes, you're starting over, but you're not starting over from scratch, but you're starting over in the next dimension. So we have to learn to embrace these seasons. We have to learn to ask God questions when we're confused. When it comes to the face of the deep, the face of the water, no matter where you are in life, in your cycle, and in life seasons, there will always be water present. Water represents God's ever-present creativity, and hold on. There will always be water present, and water represents God's ever-present creative ability to birth and to deliver and to create a new thing. So even in your dry place, water is flowing. Water is symbolic to the gateway to dimensions. Even Jesus said he will be a well of living water springing up on the inside of us. Says, out of your mouth will flow rivers of living water. Hovering over the face of the waters. Hovering literally means to move in a relaxed way. God wants us to move in a relaxed and calm way, not in an anxious or anxiety way. Or it's okay to be afraid sometimes, but you have to remove in a relaxed way, a calm way. Over your circumstances right now, no matter where you are in the building process, the Spirit of God is smoothly, confidently, and in a relaxed way, He's moving over your circumstances. You might not know it, but God is moving over your circumstances in the most smoothly way possible. That's why oftentimes what we have to do is get out of our feelings and into the Spirit. We have to get out of whining and out of our complaining and out of our feelings and out of our fear and come up to a place where the Spirit is hovering over that place. That is getting ready to burst in us into the next dimension. There will always be water over your circumstances and over your situation. In verse 3, then God said, see, God is a God of sequence. God is a God of timing. He said, let there be, in verse 3. In other words, He's saying, allow it. Allow it. In other words, it already exists. So God has promised you, and what God is producing in you, and what you're in the beginning of already exists. And the only thing that it's doing is waiting for the release of God's timing. It's already done. It's already figured out. It's already worked out. It's in the palm of His hand. That's why He says, let there be. It means let it happen. Allow it. The only thing that's holding it back is timing. So let what God promised show up, because the only thing that was keeping it was the timing. But while you wait, you got to continue. You got to continue to move in righteousness. God is getting ready to do a whole thing for you, a whole thing in you. Why did He give light first? Light is revelation. What God would give you before manifestation is revelation. Revelation always comes before manifestation to give you peace. Never doubt in the light what God showed you in the light. That's why staring at God is so important. Because nighttime will come, and sometimes nighttime season is just the beginning. Never doubt in the dark what God showed you in the light. That's why staring at God is so important, because nighttime will come, and sometimes nighttime seasons is the beginning of what God is creating in your life. But you can't see it because it's dark. You don't know your way around. You can't seem to figure things out. It's kind of hard for you to move. So God sends revelation for you to fight with the darkness. After He says, let there be light, He starts dividing things. You're in the middle of a building process. You're in the middle of a glorious renovation. God is renovating you. And it's going to be awesome. That's why we can't be weary in our well-doing. Why is God dividing? He's giving definition. God is getting ready to add definition to your life. You feel formless, and you don't know how you're going to get from where you are to what God promised you. You don't know how you're going to get where you are to what God put in your heart. God is getting ready to put definition in your life. And as you zoom in, things are going to be made clear and defined. You got to understand that things take time. Things take time for God to work on for you, because there's things in you that God needs to be made clear to realize a God thing. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just hearing the bug. Don't be scared of bugs, y'all. Don't be frustrated or intimidated by what you don't know yet. And all of these things, and all of these things is stuff that is hidden from us until completion. How do we navigate through the chaos? We have to surrender to peace. Peace is already there. There are things that just get in the way of our peace. Things we believe or things we allow. And it will always war against our peace. You have to learn how to surrender to peace that is already there. You don't have to possess it. You don't have to produce it or manufacture it because it's already there. That's why your mind stays on God. He will keep you in perfect peace. He is our peace. He is our Jehovah Shalom. The surrender to peace is the inner acknowledgement that is all well. You believe that it is all well. It is essentially agreeing with God. That's why it is surrender. God says He will work all things together for our good, for those who love Him and for those who are called upon for His purpose. The scriptures in the Bible is not for you to throw around. They are for peace. They are words from God. They are His love letters to you. Surrendering to peace is making a decision that you are going to believe God. And even though it's darkness, uncertainty, and voidness, in reality, you have to make a decision to have an inner acknowledgement that all is well. See, inner acknowledgement is a powerful decision. You bring yourself entirely to submission to that perspective. In other words, you don't allow anything in your consciousness, anything in your life, anything around you that conflicts with the perspective that God spoke to you. Sometimes you have to love people from a distance because their negativity can mess up your peace. Or their lack of faith or their lack of vision is contagious. Surrender anything and everything and every thought that conflicts with your peace. Take control over your heart. Take control over your mind. Take control over your soul. Take control over your spirit. And if there's anything that conflicts with peace, give it to God. Bring it to Him. Give it to God. You don't need a thought to make you feel peace. God will make you feel peace. This place of peace, it provides instruction, what to do and what not to do. Not the place of pressure and stress. Let's go over to Romans 14:17. That's Romans 14:17, you all. For the kingdom of God is not eating and drinking, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Spirit. You have to understand what the beginning of your next. It is never sexy, handsome, or cute. It is renovation. You have to be torn down. You have to be broken down. God cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. Sometimes God has to tear down the stage of your belief because the stage of your current belief is not broad enough and strong enough for what God is getting ready to put on the stage for you. Sometimes you can't put new equipment on an old stage. Sometimes what God is about to do in your life requires a bigger stage. So He has to tear down that little old stage in you for what He wants to do. What's in you is greater than He that's in the world. What's in you is greater than what's around you. And because of that, oftentimes God has to renovate in order to take you forward. Water and light will always be near. They represent breakthrough. From unsaved to being saved, God will guide you. He will give you what you need. While you're waiting, surrender to peace. Because God is so good. God is stupendous. And it's bigger than what you think. When you can't trust his hand, you have to trust his heart. Surrender to peace and know that all is well. Doubt try to come. You have to know all is well. When fear try to come, you have to know that all is well. When anxiety try to come, you have to know that all is well. And when worry try to come, you have to know that all is well. Because your time is coming. And that's all I have to talk about today. Have a good one.